Thank you so much for joining Dental Marketing Theory, a podcast by Gary Bird. In today's episode, Gary is joined by Fred Joyal. They discuss his journey over the last 30 years in the dental industry and how you can learn to be super bold. As always, please make sure to like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment, as all of those things really help to get the word out about dental marketing theory. Hope you enjoyed today's show.
All right, we are live. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm really excited about today's episode. I know I always say that, but today is a special place in my heart because we have somebody here that really pioneered the dental marketing space early on. And I always looked up and didn't realize the connection of really who he was and what he did until much later. And so I'm excited to dive into that today. You won't want to miss that. And before we move forward, though, I have to say this, and it's really important. Please just go leave a review for our podcast. It takes you 3 seconds. You hit the 5-star. I know you're not listening. There's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that listen to this podcast, and a lot of people ignore this. And if everybody just did that one time for me, it would help me out so much. So I really, really appreciate it. And Fred, my friend, thank you so much for tuning in. And I really want to start at where I understand you're beginning. Now, if you want to go a little bit earlier, you can. But 1-800-DENTIST was a beast of a company. And early on, when I got into marketing, I thought 1-800-DENTIST was an actual dentist office. I didn't realize that it was a marketing company that was driving leads. Now, I learned that later on, and I kind of learned about your business model, but I would love to just start off with you just telling us a little bit about your journey at 1-800-DENTIST, what happened there, where things are at now.
Yeah, we created 1-800-DENTIST in the mid-'80s, which is advertising for dentistry had really just become legal.
Yeah.
And dentists were, one, very resistant to it and not aware of it. And the ADA poo-pooed it. And actually they went beyond that and tried to make it illegal in several states. But we created, based on this phone number, the memorability of the phone number. We had two pillars of our business that our name was what we did and how you got a hold of us. It was before domain names, which would be the equivalent today. But, it was 7 digits. It was perfect. And we did television advertising, which I knew how to do because I came from the advertising world. I knew how to create it and I knew how to buy it. And that allowed us to attract potential patients because we were like Google is today, which is tons of information about the dentist. There was no way to get that.
Yeah.
Opening the Yellow Pages didn't tell you anything. That was the primary competitor at the time, was Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
So we had a long run of attracting patients using a call center to filter those patients and pre-sell the practice on the phone and then connect them to the office.
I love that. I'm gonna jump in real quick there. Yellow Pages, just for all our younger folks out there, before Google, you had to go to a room and find this giant book that was dropped off at your house every single year, and it had all these advertisements in it, and it was $5,000 to $10,000 for a page or a half page to put your office in there. And so that's actually how I broke into the dental industry. Was the phone book started going down as Google started going up. Yellow Pages had the opportunity to become Google, but they kind of missed the boat on that. They didn't see the bigger picture there, and they didn't move fast enough. So Yellow Pages kind of went down. Now, they had the best salespeople. Yellow Pages had the best training, the best salespeople. And as they went down, Google came up, and that created a space for me to move in and say, hey, let's take your phone book budget and let's move it over to Google and let's start generating you new patients that way. And then you said something pretty interesting, because I don't think most people understand this, is that the phone numbers, you used to have to remember everybody's phone numbers. So there was jingles were really big. 1-800-DENTIST with the word in it was really big, because now it doesn't matter what your phone number is. I don't have to remember it. Most people don't even know their kids or their family members' phone numbers because our phones remember those numbers for us. But I still remember my dad's phone number from when I was a kid, right? And so there's been a major shift there that now that's not as important. And so as you started to pioneer that space, what did you like first you ran into legal problems. How much did that slow you down where the dental industry itself kind of tried to resist you?
It really was hard in probably the first decade, really, because there was this belief that advertising denigrated the profession. Uh, and I had dentists come up to me at trade shows and say, "You're ruining the profession." And I said, I'm getting people to take care of their teeth." And for the first 20 years of our business, nobody was promoting dentistry more than us. We spent, in the 25 years I ran the business, so I sold it about 5 years ago, I spent $500 million in advertising.
Yeah, no, I thought
nobody spent that.
I
promoting
thought you were
dentistry.
a dentist office, so I thought like
Yeah.
1-800-DENTIST was a dental office. That's where like my first memory of a dentist was 1-800-DENTIST. So you actually probably peaked that in a lot of people's brains and spent a lot of money. It's kind of like Invisalign, right? Invisalign isn't a dental office, but they advertise clear aligners to the point where everybody knows what clear aligners are now. So they had to pioneer and do that re-education. And that's the hardest, in my opinion, that's the hardest kind of marketing to do, is where you have to re-educate both the people that you're trying to help and the market as well.
Yeah, we had to tell people that this was the best way to find a dentist because we had the most information and they could ask questions. What we found out is, when you launch your business, you figure out what problem you're really solving. People had as much anxiety about choosing a dentist as they had about going. And we relieved that because we had live operators 24 hours a day who were in the US, who understood this anxiety. They were preparing the patient to start to take care of themselves. And we really trained them really specifically to do that. Dentists would come to our call center and they say, "Can I have a couple of these people from my
because
front
back then
desk?"
front desk people were
good.
not trained as salespeople, right? Because that's really what it is when you're answering the phone. You're a salesperson, but they weren't trained that way. They were usually like insurance filers and things like that, which is not the same kind of mindset that you need to have.
They were receptionists. They were like order takers almost.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of them are that way.
Yep.
It's just a lot of practices, fortunately, are not just using the front desk person to intake patients. The more you eliminate that, the better your chance of closing the patient. The more you do things like online scheduling, which is what the world wants. And we wanted it too. We wanted it forever because the receptionist in the practice would waste the referrals.
Yeah.
We would hand off a fully ripened potential patient and they would toss it in the trash. They would repel the patient.
Yeah, because
it
it's
was
easier.
Our number one problem.
Because one of the things that most people don't realize, and this is still a major problem, a lot of the front desk people at dental offices, their job's actually easier if the new patient doesn't come in and they don't have to take that call. And there's really no financial incentive or anything like that for them to do that. And then I've heard dentists say this, well, that's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. And it's like, well, no, they also are checking patients in, checking patients out. You're asking them, the doctor's asking them for things, the hygienist is asking them for things. So who are they going to service? The person that's out there not at the office, or the people that are at the office? And that's what ends up happening a lot of times.
And you said the key thing is they're not incentivized to fill that schedule. There's no connection between their financial success and a full schedule. And that's a problem. If it's half empty, half full, doesn't affect their income at all. Affects the practice radically.
Yeah.
And so there have to be alternatives to do it. I mean, I know practices that actually don't even have receptionists. That they have a kiosk.
Oh yeah,
and they've had it for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
Works
or groups.
great.
A lot of groups now have like call centers, or if they do have call people, they just track it like we track it meticulously. Right now, the industry average is 35% of calls go unanswered, and then 50. The average conversion rate, if you just throw a front desk person on the phones, is going to be for marketing leads. It's going to be right around 50%. And if you don't track it, that's what you're going to get. And that means, so what that means practically is if you're spending $10,000 a month on marketing, about half of that is gone before you even get to the office. And then that's not counting no-shows and things like that as well. So that's why a lot of people are like, well, my marketing doesn't work. It's really, you just have these huge pitfalls. Now, when was like, so the 1-800-Dentist had a long run. Where were, like, what year was like the peak for you at 1-800-Dentist?
Probably 2000, really 1995 through 2015 really was, we were doing about $50 million a year in revenue.
Wow.
And we referred like 10 million patients by the time I finally sold the business, which was, what happens is Google disintermediated us. It became a better way than us.
Yeah.
Phone numbers, the two pillars, the phone number and television advertising, both became irrelevant almost at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you pivot? Like when you sold, how did you position that? What was the...
Too slowly, I think, was the answer.
Okay.
We because I brought in private equity and I said, we need to radically transform the approach of the business. And they said, oh, well, let's build websites. And I went, no, that's not it. That's like not
That's just one
answer.
more thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I said, we need to become a virtual front desk. We need to have an API that goes in. I'm getting technical, but an API that goes into
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that could, so people could do online scheduling. We need to transition the mindset of the dentist from, protecting they used to literally have a written book that was their schedule. And many of them would take it home because it was everything to them. Then
in what year? What year were you talking like this? Like when were you thinking this way?
By 2007 or 8,
wow.
I was trying to create this.
That's awesome, because I mean that's what people are doing now, right? So there's people who are out there doing a lot of those things now. It's very segmented. You got some people who answer the phone, some people who will schedule in, some people who will do the recare. But that's amazing that you were thinking that far ahead. Obviously, the technology's really slowed down dental. So eventually, you sold the business. What did you do after you sold the business?
I had spent so much time talking to dentists about what they would do with the referrals that we sent them, because I met really great dentists and really great practice consultants like fortune management people who would really try to teach the practice how to turn a potential patient into real production. And it started with training the front desk, but also it also was create the whole patient experience, and that converted the patient. So I wrote 2 books on dental practice marketing based on everything I learned from consumer behavior, because we listened,
what are the
millions of calls.
What are the names of those books?
So the first book is called Everything is Marketing. And the premise of it is everything that you do either increases or decreases case acceptance. Nothing is neutral. And if I could get them to understand that, then I could teach them in the rest of the book how to do all the marketing and advertising. I made a distinction between marketing and advertising. I said, marketing is everything that you do.
Yeah.
Advertising is paying
the
media
to
get, and all it does is get people to the phone or maybe to the website of the door. That's all it's going to do. The rest is everything else you do after is much more important. The second book was called Becoming Remarkable, which the premise was you have to create a remarkable patient experience so that they will remark about you, because now when they remark, it goes online. And it's there forever. It's likable, shareable, searchable, and undeletable.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference than word of mouth was 10 years earlier.
Yep.
So those 2 books became and the way I was communicating and educating the community. And they are perennials. People are still buying them,
they're great.
Reading them and talking about it.
Absolutely. And then I know you've recently launched a new book that just recently. And could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, at a certain point in your life, you say, what's the biggest thing I learned, and can I help people learn it? And what I learned was that boldness is a superpower. It transforms everything in your life. And I had to learn it because I was incredibly shy growing up and really underconfident. And it was really frustrating and really impaired my life. So I very gradually worked my way out of it. But I also realized how far I had come, and I had spoken to a group of high school students about it actually, and I had said exactly that. Boldness is a superpower, and the sooner you learn it and start to apply it, the better. And they said, "Yeah, that's great." How?
Do you feel? And I definitely want to talk about how. Do you feel? So before we got on the show, you told me a little bit about your mindset on boldness and what I've seen in not just dental, but all marketing and just any business world, entrepreneur world, is a lot of people focus on the tactical, right? People want to tell me how to do it, right? Tell me the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step, and that's okay for some things, right? But then there's the strategy. So how am I going to apply that tactical that you've taught me with everything else that I've learned and combine it and make it actually work? But then what you're describing is more of a mindset. And there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of different takes on mindset. And boldness is not something you hear a lot about from a mindset perspective. You hear about abundance, you hear about, putting people first and different things like that. But boldness is not something that you hear a lot of people talk about. And what I'm curious, the first thing that popped in my head was, is boldness something that you're born with? Or is it something that you have to work at? Or does it just depend on who it is? Like, does some people have a lot more boldness and some have less?
And there are some people that are bold and really bold from birth, and they stay that way. And I think it's because it wasn't programmed out of them. I think what happens to the rest of us is our confidence gets programmed out. The old example they use is you go to a first grade class and say, who can sing? They all raise their hand. Who can dance? They all raise your hand. You do it in the 8th grade, nobody raises their hand.
Yeah.
So it's like, what happened to these kids? They had their brains erased. No, that's so society and parenting and bullies and insecurity comes from everywhere, and it impairs people, except a very few people. So, but you can unlearn that behavior because it's negative program, but it's the voices in your head saying, I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. These people are better than me. I don't belong here. All of this stuff. I'm not good at math. I can't dance. I can't sing. I'm not good at, I'm terrified of public speaking. It's like public speaking is just speaking in public, which you do all the time.
Yeah.
It's terrifying to people. It's literally one of the biggest fears.
Yeah.
And it's all programming that you've done. It's all voices in your head. And you can, once you start to shift it, and this is the big thing that I learned in dealing and teaching boldness, is that, confidence and boldness are two different things. Confidence is how you feel in certain situations. You feel confident or you don't. Boldness is what you do. And here's the great thing.
So let me.
You don't have to be confident to be bold, right?
Yeah. So that's interesting. That's a really interesting take. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just thinking through this. So this is really, really good. So confidence and boldness are different. So confidence is like, I've studied for this test and I'm confident that I'm going to be able to go do it and take it and pass it because I know the information. That's not boldness, right? That's just confidence. But boldness is, there's a dragon that I have to go slay and I'm really scared to go slay it. And it may defeat me. I don't know. And you step out to go slay that dragon anyways. Is that the right comparison?
Yeah, it's a lot of people they feel confident, but they don't do anything with it. They feel, like I know dentists, they feel very confident about their dentistry, but they suck at presenting a big case. So what happens is, and this is the great mystery, is if you are bold, even though you don't feel confident, it builds your confidence. Mm-hmm. So it strengthens you. It builds a boldness muscle. It widens your comfort zone so that you can be your full self and be incredibly effective. And being able to meet anybody you want to meet, tell everybody what you do and why you do it and why it would be good for them. Take feedback from people, give feedback that's not overcharged because you waited too long and just started screaming, you're always late. You're always late.
Yeah.
And it's like, always? or
Yeah.
just today,
Yeah.
but they've put too much emotion into it.
So what part of this is like mindset you have to kind of like perfectionism is going to kill this, right? You're not going to be able to be bold and a perfectionist. You're not going to be able to be, if you're not comfortable with learning how to fail, then you're probably
Yeah.
not going to be able to be bold. Is that right?
That's absolutely it. You have to, what bold people know is that failure is just a stairway up. We have this huge thing about failures. Like we get to 2021, we never want to fail at anything ever again, except for bold people who say, and they are entrepreneurs a lot of times, and they're really successful dentists. They are always trying new technology, and it's like, wow, this is technique sensitive, but I am going to master it.
Yeah.
I'm going to hurt a few patients till I figure this out. And it's so that shifting that mindset about failure and stop labeling things as bad just because you made a mistake. To call a mistake a failure it's only a failure if you stop learning.
So
And that
how much of boldness do you, in your opinion, have to do with like being successful? Is it can you be successful to a certain level without boldness because you don't have to take a lot of risk, or is there just levels of boldness all along the way and you just have to become more and more bold?
I think you can be moderately successful. I mean, I know successful dentists who are not particularly bold. They have a good team around them that builds their practice, and they have good clinical skills, but they need a lot more luck at that point. They need to have picked the right neighborhood that's growing, and a lot of them don't know that, and maybe the competition didn't move in. But now and that was much more true 20 years ago when I first was in the business. You could just put out a sign and have a dental practice.
Yeah.
Those days are over.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much competition in dentistry from large group practices, small group practices, really well-run multi-specialty practices. If you're not willing to fail and get better and try new things, your practice model won't last. It won't last a decade anymore.
What do you think the steps are to be like super bold, like for someone to just be out there and not be like a jerk about it, right? Because I think that when I hear somebody just super bold in the industry, like a bull in a china shop, how can I be super bold but also not be that one guy nobody likes?
Yeah, the boldness doesn't mean you're arrogant or a show off or a narcissist. A narcissist is actually incredibly insecure. They can't be wrong, right? And you talked about perfectionism. That's the other trap is I need to be really good at this before I try it, which is ridiculous, right? You couldn't learn a musical instrument by reading a book, right? You would have to play the instrument badly and then better and better and better. It's the same thing about everything in life, social skills, all of that stuff. We think we're supposed to know these things and we don't. We learn them, and we learn them a little bit by trial and error. You want some insight into what works and what doesn't, which a lot of people don't teach you either. But you want to be able to say, I want to meet whoever I want. So basically, how would you start? You would start talking to strangers every day, and where it doesn't matter, so that it's just like exercise. You're bench pressing. It doesn't matter. You're never going to have to get 200 pounds off your chest, hopefully. But it makes you stronger. So you do boldness exercises. I'm going to talk to strangers. I'm going to smile at people. I'm going to, and every time you catch yourself resisting, like if you hate to return stuff that you bought, even though you don't want it, or it doesn't do what it does, there's a clue. There's no reason why you shouldn't bring it back. So I try to bring stuff back that there's no way they're going to give me my money back. It's like I've worn it out or something, just for exercise, just to say. They look at me and remarkably, they'll take it back, because the clerk doesn't give a shit, right? They're like, yeah, I'll take it. Here's your money back. Get out of my face.
Yeah, I've jokingly walked up to like fast food places before and said, hey, I didn't like the burger, and just like put the wrapper there, and people they're like, okay, like they will. I was like, I'm just playing.
I
I'm
don't
just
know what
playing. It
to
was,
do with that
yeah,
information.
yeah.
Right.
I was just like, I'm just joking with you, but you could tell in their face they're like, okay, if you want like a refund or something, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting. So I know recently you had a seminar around this. So we were talking. We were both at the DEO event, and you were like, hey, I'm about to do this seminar, and I got this book that I wrote, and I love all the content, but I'm going to put it into like real world practice at a seminar, which I've never. You've done seminars before, but not like this one. Tell me how that went. You were kind of sharing it with me. You had people doing some crazy bold stuff. How did it go? What happened?
So it was a 2-day workshop, and it was very interactive. And we rented out a comedy club and used it during the day, which was great. It was perfect. And I hadn't realized how important the stage was as part of the workshop. And I made people get up for everything. If I asked a question, they had an answer. I didn't let them answer from where they were sitting. They had to come up on stage and answer. And so, but then and it changed them. The dynamic of, oh, I am on stage, that the nervousness, the anxiety kicks in. And they watched and they got used to it. One guy said, he says, this is my 4th time up here. He says, it's so much easier already. He says, I can't believe this was the first day. He says, I feel differently than I did the first time just by doing it. And I said, and then I challenged them. I actually had a stand-up comedian friend of mine came, and I had told them all to bring a funny story. And so they basically did an open mic telling their story. And it was so interesting because he coached me. He said, you could do this, say this, shorten that. And it was all very quick. It was like they had a 1-2 minute story. But I said, you guys just did stand up. You just did an open mic. You did stand up in front of 20 people. That's how I did stand up when I started. It wasn't 100 people or 1,000 people. And you could see that they said, and he was teaching them. He was a great instructor as well in stand-up. And he said, all these things you're afraid of, they're the wrong things to even be thinking about. Here's what you need to be thinking about. And here's where your focus goes. And don't get attached to the joke or the story or the laugh. Because if they laugh or don't laugh, it's sometimes it's you and sometimes it's them. But the big thing is, it's over. If you kill or you die in your set,
well, the other
it's
thing,
still over.
The other thing too to remember is, like, in 5 minutes, no one's even going to remember it. Like they leave and they don't think about you. We think about it, right? So I'm like, oh, I could have said this better. What if I would have said it like this? But nobody else is thinking that. They're going on with their life. And think about all this dumb, like, we watch TV shows all the time that are absolutely stupid. They're just they're horrible. Someone spent millions of dollars on it, tons of time. They're horrible. In books too. We read horrible books. And then we go, oh yeah, and you don't even remember it. Like, you couldn't even tell me the name of it or who was in it or who wrote it.
Well, you hit on something too, is one of the insights that I talk about in the book, is that nobody is thinking about you anywhere near as much as you think they are. They're thinking about themselves. And so, but we remember stuff that we said 20 years ago that embarrassed us. And we cringe every time we think of it. You talk to another person who was there, they go, was I there? I don't even remember that. It's like,
so true.
And the other thing that we do is we walk around and we judge everybody, right? We look at that. Oh, that guy's, tall. He's got he needs to lose weight. He needs hair plugs, and she needs to dress better, and she should never wear those shoes. And like, we create a whole persona out of that person in 5 seconds. It's what we do as human beings, right? And we're wrong. I know when I do it, I'm wrong 98, 99% of the time.
Yeah.
And as soon as I meet the person and find out who they actually are, they are doing the same thing with you. What bold people know is I can't worry about their opinions of me because they're not based on anything.
Yeah.
So they have a tiny group of people whose opinions really matter to them, and they don't worry about the rest of the people. And it's a huge thing to let go, because you understand, just like you, they're having judgments that are grossly inaccurate, and you're not going to be able to correct them and you shouldn't even worry about them.
Yeah.
Worry about chasing your dreams. Worry about having impact. Worry about making a difference.
That's
Worry
great.
about being successful in a way, and everybody's not going to love you. It's not possible.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Well,
most
if everybody,
successful actor or performer has total haters.
yeah, you almost, there's a level of like divisiveness you almost have to cause to make a difference, right? Like if
Yeah.
everybody's neutral on you, that's actually a really bad thing. That means you're doing everything the way everybody else is doing it, and probably just copying everybody and going with the flow. And that doesn't really work great for business. It definitely doesn't work well for marketing. And so it's really trying to figure out, okay, how can I stand out? But again, to your point, you have to be bold to be able to do that. You have to be able to willing to take the criticism, and just step out there on the branch. So I love your mindset on that and the way you're presenting that. It's really helped me. What are some of the, like, if someone wants to get more information about your new book, your keynotes, those kind of things, how do they connect with you?
My website is fredjoyal.com, Joyal. And I'm technically Fred Joyal everything: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm a marketing guy, so I got my name. As soon as somebody come up with a new medium, I grab my
grab
name.
it.
But on my website, you can download the first chapter of the book. You can see videos of keynotes that I've done on boldness. You can find out where the next workshops are, because I'm going to be doing them all around the country.
Oh, awesome.
And the book's available on Amazon. It's in hardcover, and it's in Kindle, and it's in Audible. And I'm reading the audiobook. So that's the way to get it. And the Kindle's cheap. I just want people to have the book. I'm not trying to get rich on the book. I want people to be bolder. So the Kindle's $1.
Wow.
So if you can't afford that, I'll email me and I'll send you $1.
Yeah,
I'll
email me.
Venmo
Yeah,
you $1.
I was gonna say you can Slack me and I'll cash up you $1 to get it. Awesome. Well,
So
this has
that's
been
how
really
you would
good. Is
find
there
me.
anything?
Yep.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that we should have covered?
Well, I think it's, we're talking to the people in the dental industry, and that we are moving towards video as the most powerful connecting medium, and it's necessary in several different formats. You need it for YouTube, you need it for Instagram and Facebook,
TikTok,
and TikTok, and your website. The only way you're going to get good at doing video is if you're bold enough to stand in front of a camera and suck at it for a little bit and realize all you have to do is delete it. Nobody's good. I was a pretty lousy speaker when I first hit the stage 15 years ago. I got better.
Yeah.
I worked at get better. I watched my videos and went, what the hell am I doing on stage? What's that incoherent thought? And why am I scratching my ear every 10 seconds?
I have a funny story around that. So when a TikTok, about 6 months ago, I said, you know what, I'm going to get on TikTok and I'm going to learn it. I want to learn it because dental isn't really on there yet, but I know eventually that the dental industry will move there. So I said, I just want to learn it because I don't fully understand it. And I don't, I know it's going to be big. And so I got on it and I just made a rule with myself. I'm going to post 3 times a day, every day for the next 3 months. And I did. And I felt really stupid at first. And I said it I was literally making videos that I was like, this is so embarrassing. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I just said, I'm going to keep, but then that forced me to get better. And then eventually my page blew up. I got, not a lot for TikTok, but I got about 70, 80,000 followers on there. And it was because I just kept talking and kept working through it. And then that helped me with everything else. But I had to step out and just be bold, to your point, and say, I'm just going to post. I'm not going to care what everybody else thinks. And I'm going to do what I want to do so I can learn this thing.
Yeah, and once you start to do it, the boldness creates a positive feedback loop. Every time you are bold, there's something in that for you. Just when I tell people, look, just smile at 10 people a day, 9 of them are going to smile back.
Yeah.
And 1 isn't. And you can let go of the one who didn't smile.
That's good.
You don't have to take it personally, but you realize, wow, people will smile back. or not. It's not a big deal, but I'd rather smile at people.
Yeah.
And I talk to strangers everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk to a dentist, I say, if you're in Starbucks in line, by the time you get your coffee, the person in front of you and the person behind you should know you're a dentist.
Yeah.
And the team should do the same thing. They should know that you work for a great dentist. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah, you're already there. You're already talking to him. This has been really, really good. I'm excited to learn more about your Boldness book. I haven't read it yet, but I'm definitely going to check it out. And I really appreciate you coming on. Is there any other way to connect with you outside of your website and your social media? Is that the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can. I mean, I'm Fred Joyal at Gmail too, so it's a straight line into me. My assistant will clear some of the crazy stuff, but I generally get to look at almost all of it. So if you know, even if you want to book a half-hour conversation with me, you can go to my website
cool.
and book a half-hour conversation. You say like, how does this apply to me, or I need to understand this better, or what would if I had, I have 75 employees, could you do a keynote and how would that help?
Yeah.
And who should I invite to it? I'm happy to do that too.
That's awesome. I think this is definitely something that's needed just in general, but definitely in the dental world. Boldness I think can take you a long way. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this. It's helped me. I got my team listening on the back end as they make edits and for this video, and they're like, this is really good stuff. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your genius with us today.
Thank you, Gary. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.